anybody with a disability can represent and prove people wrong that we are as great as those who don't have a disability. Mm-hmm. Like we're just as good as them, but we have different abilities instead of disabilities.
Welcome, everybody, to this episode of The Journey. I'm Jeff Commings, and as many of you know, the global coronavirus pandemic has put a lot of things on hold in 2020, and that includes the Olympics and Paralympics, which have shifted now to 2021 in Tokyo.
That's right, and I'm Molly Harmon. Our guest today is one of millions of athletes around the world changing their plans to make sure they're ready to fight for a spot on the Team USA in Tokyo next year. Our guest today competed in the 2016 Paralympic swimming competition and is looking to return to the Paralympic pool next year in Tokyo.
And she made some history when she qualified to swim in Rio, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Please welcome us in joining Leslie Cichocki to the show. Leslie, great to have you. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How about you?
Doing very well, thank you. So, as I said, everybody's kind of had to shift their lives here in this pandemic with quarantine and not having access to pools and things like that. So tell me how your life has been since quarantine in regards to your life and being able to continue training in the pool.
I just got back last Friday in a while, and then it feels great.
And so you're probably out of the pool for about 2 months.
At least three and a half.
Oh my goodness! So what was the first workout like?
It felt really tough, but it will get easier as we get back in shape.
Absolutely. Now, a lot of people watching right now don't really know how Paralympic swimming works, and I hope you can help us educate our viewers about how you qualified for the 2016 Paralympics, because in many ways it's not as easy as it happens for the Olympic team. It's not just about placing in the top two necessarily at the Olympic trials. And I guess that should be the first question is, how do you qualify to make the Paralympic team?
Well, part of it is there's 14 classifications, 1 through 10 being physical classifications, 11 through 13 being various levels of blindness, and S14 being intellectual disabled athletes. And then the other part is the world rankings.
And so you're in the S14 class for your intellectual disability. And so when it comes time for you to take us back to the 2016 Paralympic qualifying, when you had to qualify for the Paralympics, how were you able to do that?
Tell me about when you
Probably it took me at least 9 training sessions a week.
Okay, that's a lot of swimming, which a lot of people have to do. And so qualifying for the Paralympic team and getting to go to Rio and swim in the Paralympics, obviously a very, very big ordeal for you. A lot of people dream of being able to compete at the highest level for any sport, whether it's swimming or track and field or what have you. So how were you notified when you were able to make the Paralympic team?
Well, I wasn't probably the original team. The Russians got kicked out, so I got one of the 3 or 5 Russian slots, and my mom got a call from Queenie, but she would just retired.
So Leslie, qualifying for the Paralympics is not just as simple as just the Olympic trials where you swim and you get top two. You have to be ranked a certain ranking in the world, and then you do have a meet where you have to go to actually make it all that. But I understand you didn't actually qualify at first. There was somebody in, they have a certain number of slots, and so those were all pretty much filled up. But then I understand you had someone dropped out. There was a deal with the Russians at the 2016 Paralympics. They couldn't, some of them couldn't compete, so more opened. Talk about, I'm sure you were very excited to get that call that you were on that Paralympic team.
Yes.
And so just kind of tell people a little bit about what your particular intellectual disability is, if you could.
Well, I'm slow at processing information, and it made me take me more longer than the average person to communicate.
When do you think you were first diagnosed with this certain disability?
Quite possibly maybe when I was like 3.
Yeah, and how has that affected your swimming?
It definitely makes me more different from the able body, because it's unknown, but it might have been because of the epilepsy which I was diagnosed at 1 year old. And sometimes understanding directions from the coaches can be complicated for me, especially if the other kids are being more loud and socializing too much.
Right. So that means it pretty much has to be a calmer environment when your coach is trying to give you a set to do. Is that correct?
Yes.
So when you compete in, I guess, quote unquote, normal USA swimming competitions, what kind of considerations or what other things do officials have to do to give you the opportunity to compete?
Well, we do meets like senior state now, but Illinois swimming has only implemented the motivational standards for the first time in March. But I've been to like a sectionals last year in Minnesota where they will give medals out for every single event for the disabled. But somehow for Illinois swimming, I would do 2 events and they will only medal us for 1. So it kind of depends.
Right. So when you're on the blocks and you're getting ready for a race, do you have a different kind of signal or anything to start your race?
Well, if it's like a championship season, I generally hope to break the American record in my division in the event.
So tell me about the first time, if you remember it, the first time you were able to compete with other disabled swimmers, whether physically or mentally disabled.
My first Palo meet was in May of 2010 or 2011, and it was in Cincinnati. But as far as USA swimming meets, it would be the speedo sectionals in Minnesota last year, because there was all those swimmers like Mallory Wigman, Summer Schmidt. There was people exactly from Minnesota there, like the local swimmers.
And what did it feel like to be part of a swim meet of these Paralympic celebrities, like you mentioned, Mallory, who is very prominent in Paralympics? What did it mean to swim with her?
It's always a pleasure. She's extremely sweet.
Yeah, she is. I've met her. She is a very wonderful person. And you actually became quite good in Paralympic swimming. And in para swimming, you rose to the top of the ranks very quickly. You won a gold medal at the 2015 Pan American Games in the 100 backstroke. What was it like for you to wear a gold medal around your neck and hear the national anthem played for you?
It was great. That was probably like my favorite moment.
So qualifying for the Paralympics surely has to be one of the highlights of your career so far. And we've all kind of seen the spectacle of the Olympics on the television, but the Paralympics isn't often shown in prime time. How are the Paralympics similar to what we actually see on TV during the Olympics?
I would say it's almost like seeing people of different abilities compete.
What do you think, what is your favorite part about what you see on TV versus what you actually get to do and perform at the actual Olympics?
I think it's great that anybody with a disability can represent and prove people wrong that we are as great as those who don't have a disability. Mm-hmm. Like we're just as good as them, but we have different abilities instead of disabilities.
I like that. So besides featuring athletes with disabilities, how does the Paralympics kind of differ, I guess, from the Olympics?
Classification has different rules that they have to follow in order not to get disqualified, and as far as the event schedule, we don't offer like 400 IM, the 1500, the 800, 200 back, or the 200 breast, like those stroke ones. And there's not as many events too.
So I've noticed that you don't get to swim things like the 200 backstroke or the 400 IM or even the mile. Do you think that's something that Paralympians want to have included in the Paralympic schedule?
Yes, I think they should have like all the events just like the regular Olympics, and just let all the athletes with different abilities just choose their events and their specialty.
Yeah, that's very true. So you've won medals in the 100 backstroke at the Pan American Games. You competed in the Rio Paralympics in the 100 backstroke. Would you say you're better at the 100 backstroke or the 200 backstroke?
Both.
Well, that's good. That's good.
I like the 200 as well.
I think you're making a case for the Paralympics to include the 200 backstroke. Hopefully it won't be 2021, but maybe at the 2024 Olympics that could happen.
Yeah, definitely take like the 200 back over the 200 free.
I think a lot of people do. Some people say the 200 backstroke is harder, but some people say the 200 freestyle is harder. But if you're a backstroker, the 200 backstroke is definitely easier. That's true. So you were one of the first, you were not one of the first, you were the first intellectually disabled swimmer to represent the United States at the Paralympics. When were you told about this distinction that you were the first intellectually disabled swimmer to represent the USA?
I would say probably like in Houston at the camp.
And how did it make you feel to be the first to to do this?
I thought it was great to make headway for S4 teams in the U.S.
And at the Paralympics with the S14 division, how do you feel, at least in the United States, it is regarding the competition with you to be able to make this next Olympics in 2021?
I think it's still possible, as there isn't really many S4 teams here at my level.
Well, I think that's going to make for a very exciting and maybe, I don't know, an easier road for you to the Paralympics than many. I'm sure I'm sure the second time around at the Olympics is going to be just as fun for you as the first. What is your main memory from competing at the Rio Paralympics?
Just getting seventh overall, like just making finals in Rio at my first Paralympics.
That's pretty amazing and an amazing accomplishment. I'm sure everyone you know, and I'm sure you should be super proud of yourself. Speaking into Tokyo next year, what are some of your goals for the Paralympics?
Well, now that we have the 100 fly to work with, I like to keep on like progressing in that event as well.
100 butterfly, 100 backstroke, that doubles your chances at a medal. What do you think your medal chances are in both of those events?
I would say they're probably like very, very likely. If like.
And what medal is that you're holding right now?
That is the 2015 gold.
Very nice, very nice. I'm sure you look at that often. Is it a big source of motivation for you every time that you get in the water to train?
Yes.
I can imagine. I have won a few medals in my time, and when I look at them, it inspires me to get bigger and better. So I definitely agree that medal should be inspiring for you, that you can add to that collection. I think something else that you probably like having even more than medals you're wearing right now, the shirt that you're wearing is some of the clothing that you get to be part of Team USA at the Paralympics. Correct me if I'm wrong, you get the same clothes for making the Paralympics that the athletes who make the Olympics make, correct?
Yes.
So how does it feel to know that, there is that kind of equality with the swimmers on the Olympic team and the Paralympic team in terms of the gear that you wear, that you can walk around and, have the emblem on your sleeve that says USA Paralympic Team?
I think it's great now if the able body and the Paralympics can come to more like a more inconclusive competition in USA swimming. That would be awesome. Like then we can compete at the Pro Series with the US Open. Now that's like an area that needs more work. Then we all can have like an equal number of competitions.
Yes, I think that's something, you're right. The USA doesn't do as much as other countries. I know that Great Britain and Australia, for example, they hold their Paralympic trials with the Olympic trials at the same time. I think that would be something that would increase the exposure, is to have the Paralympic trials at the same time as the Olympics. I think everybody would love to see you stepping up on the blocks and racing for your spot. And I would imagine that having 14,000 people screaming for you at your Paralympic trials would be very exciting.
Yeah, if we can have it like Canada and Australia or Great Britain, that would be kind of cool to combine them.
Well, maybe now that the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee are now combined, maybe that's something that is being in the conversation, and maybe we will see that in the future, and we'll be able to see you and other people like Katie Ledecky all racing at the same meet for the same goal. That would be fantastic.
I definitely miss that woman. She's nice.
You've met Katie Ledecky?
Yes.
Well, everybody who meets her definitely says she's one of the nicest people. I'm sure that's another perk of you being a Paralympian is you and Olympians and other Paralympians get to hang out, and I'm sure you are just as much of a celebrity to her as she is to you. Well, Leslie, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure to learn more about your journey to becoming a Paralympian. Best of luck to making the next Paralympic team, and we'll see you in the pool.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us, and I hope you learned a lot about the Paralympic experience from Leslie. And as we always say, it's not just about the destination, it's about the journey. And before we go, it looks like Leslie wants to show us a little photograph there. That looks like President Obama shaking your hand?
Yes.
Okay. I'm jealous. I'm very jealous. You've probably made a lot of viewers very jealous too. That is so great. You have earned all of that, and I hope that after the 2021 Paralympics, you get another chance to go to the White House, shake the president's hand. That is a very unique experience that not a lot of people get to have. So again, congratulations to you.
Thank you.
All right, so that'll do it for our show. And again, it's not just about the destination, it's about the journey. We'll see you next time.